right. This is Cop Talk Live, changing cop culture. It's Wednesday night, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern. We go live on Wednesdays, and typically it's just me and you guys, and we go over police videos, go over your voice notes, take calls, and all that kind of good stuff. But tonight I got a guest. We're going to do a little bit of different format. I don't know, depending upon how much time you have, maybe we could take some calls tonight and talk to people, which would be great. But different format. The purpose of this channel, if you guys are ever on it, we talk about law enforcement issues. I'm very passionate about law enforcement. Ex-cop, spent my time up here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. If you follow the rest of my channel, I'm a very big loudmouth advocate over what's wrong with police. I don't showcase the good shit. I just don't. I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. I truly believe in addressing the problems head on. A lot of my stuff is negative reinforcement kind of content. I believe in saying, you can't do it. You're never going to do it, because I want to see people tell me a big old F you in my face and climb the ladder and do it anyways. I've been blessed the last couple of podcast interviews that I've done to have some awesome people. If you ever, I had Long Island Audit on a couple of months ago. You can go find that interview. We had Trooper Ivana Williams on just the last week. It was just not too long ago with the 30th Christmas, New Year's Eve. Great podcast. And Marlon Marachi, did I pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
I did. Yeah, 24-year retired LAPD joining today. So I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Oh, dude, Dom, thanks so much for having me, man. Last name has been chopped up. In the Navy, they call me my crotch, my Maguchi. Miyagi, you name it, bro. It's just it's been chopped. So just happy to be alive and celebrating a birthday today with you, bro. Well, so this is a good birthday present.
You said happy 50.
5'6".
5'6". Well, not for nothing. You fucked up my last name when you called me on the phone. So you called me Rizzo. So we're good.
I did.
Hey, listen. First things first. We're gonna have a fun conversation about law enforcement tonight. You are the host of the IA Is it IA podcast?
Yeah. Yes. The IA guy.
The IA guy, and we're going to talk about that today. I'll pull it up so you guys can see all that kind of stuff. Listen, you're LAPD. I mean, LAPD, Chicago, New York, NYPD. I was just a lowly, suburban guy. Should I be bowing down to you? Am I good enough to have a conversation with you? Because according to some other cops, when you go online, I mean, unless you were a big city cop, you're just not a cop in the United States. Do I need to kiss your ass, or is there any proper imprimatur to do to have this interview?
A handshake's fine, brother. A dap is good to go. But you know what? We're the big bad wolf, man. They say that we're supposed to be the best, and we're going to touch a little bit about IA stuff. But I got to tell you, man, we have such big egos that we're just not willing to let go of some things in the past as it relates to the process, the culture, and stuff like that. But no, man, just happy to be on. I can tell you that the fact that what you're doing, and I've been watching you and listening to you, and I praise you, man. Just keep going, and collaborative efforts are the best way to go up.
Well, let's have a conversation. Let's start to begin with. So, who are you? What's your background? Let's talk about getting into law enforcement, what law enforcement meant to you, and all the way, and whatever you want to talk about, to the way you started a podcast and you're taking on some serious issues, and let's just talk tonight.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So I always get asked this when thinks about, hey, did you ever want to become a cop? The truth of the matter is I was in the Navy. I did not want to re-enlist. My best friend was my biggest influence. He was in the academy, and he pretty much told me, hey, dude, this is a fucking great gig. At the time, and this is 1995, 1996, 1997, there was a lot of, the 1992 LA riots happened. So I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to do that shit, man. I don't want to get shot. And if you recall, there was the Diallo shooting in New York, the NYPD 14-year-old kid that was walking up to his apartment complex. There was about 3 or 4 cops that drew down on this kid, and he reached inside his, I think his jacket, pulled out a wallet, pop. Next thing you know, they just unloaded on him 44 rounds. And I believe Bruce Springsteen made a song about that called 44 Shots. So at that time, I was like, you know what? Do I really want to do this? Carry a gun? Get into the controversial shooting? Absolutely not. But you know what? Once I applied, my fears and my concerns became motivation, and I was pumped, bro. So I got in July of 1998. I spent 24 years in the LAPD. I promoted to sergeant in January of 2007. And since 2007 until I retired from till July 2022, 15 years as sergeant, I got into the world of discipline. I was in internal affairs for 5 years, but I also worked the other side of the table. What a lot of agencies call your union reps in LAPD, we are so big that we actually have a full-time unit, and our sole job is to defend cops when it comes to any type of IA. But our primary duty is to roll out to all these critical incidents. OIS is being the most popular because that's what happens the most. I mean, in 1 year alone, we had about 100 OISs. And so my job as a defense rep was to pretty much prepare, watch body worn video, and ensure that IA is not violating any rights when we're doing this compelled interview. Because the attorney, as you may know, gets paid the big bucks to just represent the shooting officers. So guess who's left with doing all the other interviews, percipient witnesses, and everything that comes with this whole process. So I gained that experience. So I actually teach a California post-certified course of OIS that pretty much talks about everything that leads up to the time that you pull the trigger and everything that happens, that whole process until I said, you know what, go forward, we're done, we're out of here. I can walk you by the hand through that whole process. And I've been doing discipline for like 15 years. Now, with that being said, when I retire, the last 2 years, I've been employed by Savage Training Group, and I teach an internal affairs course. And I got to tell you, Dom, all these conversations that we've been having during breaks with all the students, all these new sergeants, all these police officers, I had to put it on a social platform. Why? Because it is a topic that is so taboo. Not many people like talking about, when you get jammed up, and maybe there might be some lessons learned. Maybe there's something to grow upon. But all those conversations, because of culture, you know how it is. There's a negative stigma attached to IA. I decided to launch an internal affairs, a police podcast is how I launched it a year ago. And I'm proud to say that we just hit 1 million views in just a little over a year. And I'm stoked, man. Just moving on forward.
How can people wind up hearing that podcast? Where can they go to check that all out?
So let's go to YouTube channel. So what I ended up doing is that we went from the Internal Affairs a Police podcast. Then I started another, I suppose, another channel, if you will, was called Capers. In other words, tell me about this bitch and caper, because the word caper was not in existence until you became a cop. Crazy, wild pursuit, heroic act, significant arrest. And what we did is we learned as I'm going through, making content and becoming a podcaster, I graduated to make it a brand into the IA guy. So when you go to YouTube, all you got to do is just put the IA guy, a police podcast, and you're good to go.
And let me try to, I had that full screen up the right way. I had it up. So here we go. I'll have it up for everybody to check it out. This is the IA guy on YouTube. We'll check it out. You can see I'm subscribed. Go hit that button and you do the same. Otherwise, you're part of the problem. You complain way too much.
Man, let me tell you something, man. You're missing out on some really good conversations, man. A lot of old school, I am an LAPD alum, so a lot of my guests, I want to say about 70% of my guests have been LAPD personnel. What we've learned, Dom, through the podcast is that I get to ask questions like, hey, where were you in the 1992 riots? When the verdict came down on the 4 officers on the Rodney King beating, where were you? Because I have a lot of old school OGs, coming in and telling their stories. And not many people know about the Rampart scandal. Not many people know about the riots, and not many people know about the Rodney King.
That blows me away. I was standing. I remember it. I had a 19.
Where were you?
I was 892. I was 18 years old, or just about to turn 18. I was standing at Jiffy Lube, and I was just about to pay for the oil change on my 1978 lifted K5 Blazer. Then the verdict came out, and then that was the OJ verdict. Did the Reginald Denny happened during that riot, didn't it?
Florence and Normandy. I just had one of my old bosses on surveillance, he works SIS. I don't know if you ever heard of a special investigation section. They're pretty much a low key eyewitness to the most violent criminals there is on earth. And all they did is go after them and pretty much at times, they had to dump them. Anyhow, they were surveilling Reginald Denny, what happened on Florence and Normandy during the riots. Yes, that did occur as a result of the riots.
You know, whenever we talk about law enforcement, for the most part, you know, a lot of us love the war stories about the high stress stuff. But that's not the case of what law enforcement really is when it comes down to the majority of what Americans really care about for change. You've seen my content. You and I had a conversation beforehand. Times have changed in law enforcement where
Correct.
now I became an FTO in 2016, and I'll never forget, big class. There was about 50 of us in a class for the 40-hour FTO class, and the instructor, the first opening thing, he said, "Get used to removing from your vocabulary 'because I said so." He said, "You can no longer say that to your trainees who are in the car. They'll go and file a complaint to you, to your command staff." We're like, "What?" They go, the guy said, "It's as legitimate as if you get in a gunfight and tell somebody to take cover behind the engine block, and they say, 'Why?' And you say, 'Because I said so,' you're gonna catch a complaint." We saw a shift of law enforcement changing in that time. And this is where we are today, you're talking about riots and Reginald Denny. And, you know, I mean, and I understand the whole I was on NIPUS, Mobile Field Force, and I never had a riot, but the only thing we ever had to come close to was it was 80 of us versus about 400 Minutemen standing outside of a establishment protesting. And thank God things didn't get out of hand. But that's what everybody talks about when they want to leverage their dick measuring contests with law enforcement. But today it's social media cops and TikTok and Instagram and the celebrity status of law enforcement. We're at two polarizing different places in law enforcement today, and we have a legitimate problem. You're out of it, but my God, did you see any of this start to come towards the tail end of your career?
Yes. I recall there was this viral dancing video thing that had to happen. And I want to say that Miami-Dade PD started it. And next thing you know, we had to do it, and other agents had to dance while in uniform. The other thing that really kind of trips me out a lot about law enforcement is that we paint such a picture on social media that this oh my God, this is a great job. Look, man, TikTok, and we're selling lemonade with the kids, and we're walking the old lady, across the street. When in reality, what they should be telling you, look, bro, if you're going to get on this job, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be working shitty hours. You're not going to be home during the holidays. You're going to be working probably graveyards, and good luck on getting some days off, because sometimes you have to bid for your days off. It's not as easy and as pleasant and as, unicorns, strawberry and peaches as it may seem. So, yeah, man. At the tail end, when I left 2.5 years ago, yeah, for sure. Social media has given, I'm not going to say a negative impression, because what we're doing in social media is a really good thing. However, when you start talking about influencing others to come on the job, and you're doing all these bathroom selfies and all this other lifestyle. I remember I had an entry level. I was part of a board when I was a sergeant, an entry level exam, and someone said, "You know what? I want to become a cop because it's not just something that I want to do, because it's a lifestyle," which kind of makes sense. But the lifestyle that we're portraying today, yeah, bro, not with it.
When we found our body cameras, we had WatchGuard body camera, and they have a feature called Record After the Fact, which is a proprietary setting by the company that if the command staff chooses, the body cameras that, for those who don't know, the body cameras are always in a state of record. They just happen to loop every 30 seconds or 60 seconds, depending upon what the department wants. Ours looped every 7 minute and 1 second. And then instead of recording over itself, it saved itself. So if you had a 12-hour shift, divide 12 hours by 7 minutes and 1 second, and that's how many files you had for that day. So as we were going through the oh my God, that's me in the bathroom. Oh my God, that's me texting my ex on the squad car. All this stuff. One of the videos I saw, because we had just got on social media, and this is what people don't understand. We had a policy, no cell phones in the squad. We all abused it.
Okay.
All abused it. And, no social media, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I watched our only female on duty going code, that's lights and sirens for those who don't know, down a residential street. And it was 25 miles an hour. She was doing 43. I could see on her dashboard. And she was driving the squad car with her knees while updating her social media. And I had that video. And I'm like, this is where, so that was 2016. I have to wonder, because I'm looking at me specifically. Social media is addicting. And I can't go throughout my day without constantly checking my status and all this kind of stuff online. And I'm an entrepreneur, right? I work from home and all this. I have to wonder what it's like for today's kids who have a different brain than I do, who you might be on a scene where, I don't know, you are investigating your evidence tech, or even you're on a traffic stop and your partners, if you have the 2-man squads, you're sitting in the passenger seat, your partner's up at the door taking the driver's license. Are you so addicted that you're looking at that phone, checking your Instagram or your social media, while your head is down instead of keeping your eye on your partner? I don't know if the attention span of today's kids are being completely warped by social media.
100%. It has some tactical issues, as you just mentioned. To me, it seems a little bit contradicting, if you will, because there are departments that have official social media platforms where you are allowed to film. LAPD right now has like there's an officer in his shop, and he's telling him how he came on the job and all the things that he did before and how bitching the job is, which is fine. I get that. However, there is that other side where the things that you're talking about, they're just so addicting. You're so fixated with, everything that, oh my God, I got to see what post or, how many views and all this good stuff, which is what I do. I'm no different than you are, man. I'm fucking stoked that I got to 1 million views, and I was on crack just checking every 5 minutes, my status. So I can only imagine if you're out there listening and watching and us having this conversation, just know that, we're talking about your tactics here. We're talking about your safety. So that's a huge, huge component that is super important when it comes to tactical applications as it relates to doing some social media while on duty.
I'm picking on him, and I'm singling him out only because, and this is not you, this is me bringing this up, and you and I didn't talk about this, but I took heat this week for going after a social media female cop who happened to be the partner of a Chicago police officer who was shot and killed in 2022. And I made a statement saying, well, maybe if you spent less time, taking selfies on social media, your partner would still be alive today. She wasn't with her partner when she got shot, but I'm like,
right.
What was their routine like? Hey, we're diva female cops. Let's keep doing selfies, this and that. And we used to call it staying in yellow, right? You're not in red, and you're not in green. You're always on. You're ready to go, but you're staying in yellow. I wonder how much softer this generation of cops has become. And when you're soft, you overcompensate. So I have to wonder how many of these excessive use of force incidents we see nonstop online are a product of legitimately soft cops who do not have the mentality of being in the police because they're not present in reality. They're present online.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. It's one of those, I can't help but to think about the psychological component to this. I mean, your game's got to be fucking on when you're out there. You really do. You got to be laser focused. And here's the deal. Look, if you get into a use of force and, what we call a Donnybrook, and you're going to put the boots on, man, and do something, hey, man, everybody else is going to record it anyways. So, everybody's recording. So why don't we take the time to really hone in on your skill set? And you can agree to this, Dom. There isn't enough. And I say this all the time, there will never be enough training that your department will send you to. Never. They won't send you. They won't. You got to seek
Wow.
training on your own.
Let's talk about the reality of that, because I'll admit it flat out. You know what it's like to get that, hey, you need to update this for the year. You got to sit inside the station, and get it done. And you spend 4 hours fucking around just
Check
going
the box.
100%. We don't do training.
Yep.
We go through the motions.
That's it.
24 years. So you started the same, 01, 02? When did you start?
I started in 798, man.
Oh, 98. So I started in 01, so it was around the same time.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
heard the same shit back then. We need more training. We need more training. We need more training. How sick and tired should the public be hearing us say, well, we need more training, when they're the ones who suffer at the hands of our lack of training?
Yes, 100%. Training has so many issues and challenges that you and I can discuss for for a long time. But what we need to do better in is getting officers to say, "Hey, man, you know what? Stop spending money on that bitchin' fucking staccato that you're gonna get, or go to Baker to Vegas and spend all that money to go all these events and do this and that, and spend money to go get some really good training."
I want to kind of talk about, I want to empathize. I want to get people to empathize with cops for a second, because they don't know what the life is truly like. And we could say a million times, you're going to work holidays and all that stuff. I loved it. Holidays, overtime pay. I got to avoid family and the responsibility of that shit. Your sleep schedule's off. I loved all three shifts. I got blessed in my first department was the 8-hour shifts. And I was so anti 12s until I went to 12s. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best on the planet. 5 a.m. to 5 p or 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. I freaking loved it. But a big part of what the people don't understand is the psychology of the cop and how the shit trickles downhill theory. And I kind of want to defend police for a second. Here you are, you're a guy or gal, whatever, and the pressures of what you go through from your family life, your wife, arguing with you, your kids are a pain in the ass, you go to work, you got to catch something from your command staff, hey, rewrite this or see me memo, pressure from them. You're stuck in that box of a vehicle by yourself. Well, you're LA, you have the nice weather at least. It's 2 a.m. February in the Midwest and it's freezing outside. And then you get a DM from your commander saying, don't forget your foot patrol. And you're like, it's -2 out. You got to get your foot patrol. There's nobody here. And you got to do that anyways. And then you have these cops who, what they do? They take their shit out on the public. Can you kind of talk about the psychology of what it's truly like to be in that job when they think this is the greatest thing in the world, and then you realize you're a lightning rod for stress, pressure, and abuse?
100%. I can tell you on a personal note that I started working overtime in 2002, and I spent 20 years of my career working 6-7 days a week just to make ends meet, to live a really nice, cushioned lifestyle, to provide for my daughter. But all it got me was a divorce and time away from my daughter. And what I like about the transition or that paradigm shift now is that we do talk a lot about mental wellness. But back in our days, that was unheard of. And when you say things like it's a lightning rod getting ready to burst, it's because of everything that we see and everything that we experience. People come home from a shift and all they want to do is just get a drink just to calm the nerves down, because your mind is just constantly spinning about the things that you've seen. And the worst that God has to offer is the way I put it. And so there never was this support mechanism to try to see how it is that we can get better emotionally. We don't. And it affects your personal life 100%. If I were to do it all over again, I would have spent more time at home taking care of my family and spending time trying to fix the things that I could have fixed, because in retrospect, having to reflect on it now, there could have been some other possible outcomes. Now, with all that being said, is what you also have to know is when you are in uniform and you're locked on, it's a little bit scarier now than it was when we were on, because now, and I teach this a lot, and I say this a lot in my LS class, is that you today can possibly get criminally filed on when you pull the trigger, when you get involved in deadly force. And that's the honest truth. 10 years ago, man with a knife, you show up and you do everything that you thought was right, perception, as opposed to reality, what you believed, you're probably good to go. But today's OIS, you're going to lose your freedom, bro. It's not just your job. It's your freedom. You're going to end up in prison if you don't know the laws, if you don't know the rules by which you be playing this game. So I'm glad you brought that up, because mental wellness is huge. Now, when it comes to internal affairs, our culture is just really screwed up. With all due respect, it's been pretty fucked up for the last couple of decades.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what really bothers me, which is one of the motivating factors, which is a lot of them, to start this podcast, is because we preach transparency so much with the public.
Right.
And we do a good job. We do. There is ordinances, there is Senate bills. Hey, show the public and show the community about this critical incident. Not a problem. And we do a very good job with body-worn video depicting the situation. But guess what, man? When Dom and Marlon are responding to a radio call and shit goes wrong, and they, meaning whoever calls the hotline or whoever wants to walk in the front desk and make an IA against us, now you and I are completely ostracized, and we don't talk about that. There is no transparency when it comes to within. No. Internal issues are the number one, I would say probably a stress factor, because
they're the number one aspects for cop suicides. I'm so tired of these people putting 100%. Out there saying, "Oh, we need to prevent cop suicides," and go to brass. Explain it. Yeah. Everything you were talking about, like if you can go back and spend more time at home, I don't know if you could. Now, 50-year-old me, 50. Like when I was in my mid 40s, towards the end, I'm like, nah, dude, I'm not coming anymore. But the younger me, I could work 20 days straight. 12-hour days, because it was an addiction. And it's like you thought they were your family and your brothers and this and that. And then, man, you do everything for that good boy pat on the back from your sergeant and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you find one day, for just no reason whatsoever, because you're still dealing with a dynamic human being, we forget that our sergeant still has a boss, still has a wife, still has stress, and he takes that shit out on you. And by the way, your boots were on top of your locker instead of in your locker. Write me a memo if you want them back. Here's a memo for your file for discipline. The fuck are you talking about? People don't get the petty needling. It's like Chinese water torture to these fucking cops that are going out there, and they don't talk about it. That in turn, I think that the one thing I've noticed the most lately is it's kind of like you're sticking up for your abuser when you're a cop, and you can get shit on 7 ways from Sunday. And as a cop, by your own, by the command, by the public, but when somebody criticizes your profession like me, they will turn like piranhas at the cow that just wandered into the fucking pond, and oh no, we're going to defend that. It's like, guys, do you know how shitty you have it? And I'm pointing this out. Oh, fuck you. Blah, blah, blah. I think cops have got one of the weirdest, most fucked up psychologies, because of almost like a window shade effect. You go on scene and you see something horrible, but it doesn't register. It's still your job. You could see the worst shit on the planet function completely normal. It's hours and hours later that, like, you pull on the window shade and it rolls right up, that all that shit comes up and you're like, oh my God, that was a dead kid. There was fucking blood that woman was screaming, and it's like that. I think it's the same thing with those individual scenes, and then the internal within, just backstabbing, backbiting, just betrayal, discipline, that all of a sudden, like, wait, I was great. I was golden for 5 years. What is this? And all that shit runs up on them, and it completely changes these cops that we have on the street.
100%. I had a guest come on who was, I want to say, 2 months out of probation from the academy, and he got into an OIS at, I want to say, 3:30 in the morning. He didn't sleep uh, the day before because it was his last day on Graves, his Friday, and he doesn't get interviewed, the compelled interview by Internal Affairs until 5 p.m. The next day. So he was up for 28 hours, stuck in a room in uniform, full gear, with vest and the whole nine. And the sergeant's up there kicking with his legs up in the desk saying, "Yeah, kid, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just hang tight." And he's just in fear. He's d- dozing off, not trying to fall asleep. But get this. So he goes through his whole interview and he felt, and then he's 2 months, right? He has 10 months left of probation. And in the LAPD, you are considered a temporary employee until you actually pass probation. So for 10 months, he came back to work, and everybody, including his FTO, lieutenants, command staff, they pretty much told him, forget about the OIS. Just move on because you have to pass probation. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. So he almost felt like he had to grab this OIS, this incident, and put it on a shelf and just be silent and not talk about it. And it just took the life out of him.
Yeah, they don't understand the stress. I dated a woman 10 years ago. She was a police officer for a suburb out here, Darien, Illinois. And she was one of the worst human beings I've ever fucking dated. And it was because of her job. Then the public doesn't get this. You put people on your street and you take no involvement in your towns to find out how it's operated. Like I used to, well, wait a second. So the people in your town that you do your DUI patrols, traffic, and God forbid if you ever have to pull your fucking gun, they don't know that you're on a 28-day rotation cycle, which means every 28 days you work 7 to 3. And then the next 28 days, you work 3 to 11. Then the next 28 days, you work 11 to 7. And then you bid on your days off. So you could have 14, 15, 16 days in a row, then have 2 days off or 1 day off and go back at it. I was like, do you not realize that this is why you're a raging fucking cunt all the time? You get no sleep. You're always miserable. And then you go on the street and patrol those people. And your judgment, the information. I never understood, like, and what I kept saying, why does your union not go? Well, they're afraid of command staff. They're afraid of command staff. And the citizens are the ones who pay the price for this. So this, it's like, I know a lot of people who watch these things, they love when I bitch on cops and I really point out the shitheads that are on the street, and God knows there's way too fucking many of them, but they also don't understand the horrible stress and pressure for these people. And sadly, it's the idiots online who are taking away the proper attention that we need towards these people who are still actively doing the job right and getting abused, then taking it out on the public.
Yeah, no, it's spot on, Dom. The main stakeholder that has the most impact on our services, or I should say how we render service, is the person who calls 911 and expects for us to fix their problems. And I suppose that's part of the problem too, right? And I don't know how you feel about this, but non-coded calls is what we call it here in the city of Los Angeles, where maybe sometimes you don't need the police. But guess what, man? Look, all these controversial incidents, from George Floyd to the Ferguson incident, Breonna Taylor, you name it, we can go on and on and on and on. But like I always tell people, you know what? At the end of the day, guess what, man? You got to call 911. And guess who's coming to help you? Well, me. So no matter how you treat me, and if you want to motherfuck me from now until Sunday, guess what? I got to suck it all up and help you.
Thank you. Let's talk about that for a second. I knew there was a problem in law enforcement. It was I put a post up on my Facebook many years ago, and I simply asked a question: how many of you base your issuance of a traffic citation on the attitude or words of the driver? Every single fucking cop. Oh, I do all the time. I got to teach them a lesson. Oh, I got to do this. I've asked other cops in podcasts, hey, do you base your traffic citations on the attitude of a driver? Oh, absolutely. That's just discretion. And I would point out, if a lawyer heard that, you're going to get fucked for violating their First Amendment. And it blows me away how many cops don't get. Listen, I get that you're going to, this guy's a fucking cocksucker. Yeah, I'm going to, and you could personally be thinking I'm going to ruin this fucking day. Don't admit it. Don't fucking, but the fact that we don't have intelligent men or women out there enough to keep their mouths shut about it says we have a legitimate problem in law enforcement.
Well, what the problem lies on that, Dom, is the fact that we don't teach emotional intelligence in any academy. We don't have EI. EI is a fucking buzzword, but guess what, man? How many people actually practice it or even know about it?
Heck, I've never heard of that. Explain what that is. Emotional intelligence? I've never heard of that. Now, I want to give you just really quickly my background. Before I became a cop, I was in retail, and then I went to the restaurant and then bar industry. So I had service. I knew that if I treated you like shit, you weren't going to pay me. So when I became a cop, it was the easiest job in the world. You talk people into handcuffs, and then if you needed to go hands-on, you lawfully needed to go hands-on. Emotional intelligence, what are you talking about?
Yeah, EI. So before I start with EI, you know what? I got to admit, and I got to confess, I was one of those cops in traffic stop, but I would never, we're on a podcast now, I'm retired, but my partner and I always had a 10-second rule, which means that when I approach, and within those first 10 seconds, man, if you want to be a dick and be disrespectful, dude, I'm going to cite you. But if you are respectful and say, you know what, officer, I'm so sorry. Yes, I knew I was speeding. Here's my information. I got to go to the hospital. Then chances are I'm going to use skirt of the law and just let you go.
Do you agree with that now? Because I'll say his name, but it is what it is. Frank Sloop. Everybody loves Fridays with Frank.
Yeah.
And they love how he's a condescending asshole. And I asked him on a podcast, you might be able to do that, but do you not realize the danger you're doing where some young guy is going to emulate to be you, see how you are? They're not the wordsmith you are. They may not be able to back up shit. And they may run into somebody like me who has a bad day and then the flip switch and it's like, excuse me, officer, you disrespect me? Fuck you. We're going to war now.
Dude, yes. I'm with you. Frank is, God, his craft, he's good, man. That guy's 5-star, 100%. But here's the problem. I've been doing a lot of breakdowns, and I'll continue to do those more now in 2025 about this phenomenon with the ID, dude. I just don't get it. You pull someone over and they say, nope, I'm not going to give you my ID. What? And then next thing you know, the situation escalates just like that. And for all you know, you might have to break leather and pull the trigger. But to your point about EI, emotional intelligence is somewhere along the lines of, look, when you are in a situation, let's just give a traffic stop, and you ask someone to come out of the car and you're having this conversation, if that particular person starts being rude, disrespectful, and starts raising their voice, and you want to kind of one-up them and continue to one-up them, you know what? Fuck you. No, well, fuck you. Well, you know what? Turn around, put your hands behind your head. Now you're going to fucking jail. Your emotional
violation of First Amendment at that point.
Right. Your EI level is not calibrated to the point where you don't know how to maneuver and get a hold of your emotions. And basically, there's got to be some intellect on your part to take a step back and just say, you know what? This person can really motherfuck me, because what we really, and I teach this a lot too, is you got to ask yourself, risk versus reward. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Always got to ask that, because a traffic stop, as you know, and there's incidents all over the United States where it starts off with just a simple infraction of a traffic stop, and it just might end up into an OIS. And the first question the sergeant at scene or any command staff officer is going to say, all right, what do we have here? What are we doing? I'll give you a perfect example, the Scotty Scheffler. I did a breakdown on that. Scotty Scheffler is arriving at 6 a.m. to go tee off. He is the #1 ranked golfer in the world, and he's over, I think it was in Kentucky for the PGA Championship, and there's a traffic scene with cones, there's people. Basically, there was a traffic collision, and there was a fatal involved. But he stops at one location when an officer's talking to him, and there's not communication going on. Next, he takes off, and then that officer gets all pissed off, gets out of the car, and said, "Okay, you know what? Get out of the car." And I think you've seen it. He ends up getting booked on second degree assault or some on a felony. Of course, 2 weeks later, it gets dropped. My point to all that is when and the sergeant is seen on on video saying, "You know what? He's going to go to jail. I can't talk to you about it. Have a nice day. Go pound sand. We're done." If you're a sergeant at scene, and the point I'm bringing up is that you know what, you really have to use some really good discretion and ask your officers, you know what do we have here? Are we really going to do this? And so that's just my opinion.
The last thing people have is their attitudes, and they should be allowed it. People don't get that. My job, right, is to keep the peace and maintain order in a free society. Or my job was to keep the peace and maintain order in a free society.
Right.
I used to disagree. I was completely anti-citation my last year on. I think I wrote one ticket in 9 months, and my command staff was pissing me off. Like, they were pissed off. I'm like, what are you going to do about it? I have discretion.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, when you stop somebody, you're inconveniencing them. They're pissed off. They're seized. They are not free to go. For a grown adult who have to submit to a grown fucking authority, it's a pride issue times 10. I'm 50 years old. I still answer to my 75-year-old father when he says something, because he and I are best friends. But if there's a last word in the conversation, fuck, that man gets it. He gets it, and it's like I have to submit to him. If there's a supervisor or boss, I have to submit to them. I don't want to submit anymore, especially to a cop on a traffic stop. So when we're doing that and we're putting these pressures on these people, you can't motherfuck your father. You can't motherfuck your boss. You get fired.
Correct.
You can motherfuck the cop, and you should be. So if you should be allowed to. If you get pulled over and say, you know what, fuck you, officer, for pulling me over, what does it matter? What does it matter? Let them blow that steam off. Let them have some word, and don't let it get to your ego. I just don't understand why cops do that. And again, he's not going to defend himself because he blocked me and we don't talk. But Frank, I looked at him. I went, okay, I don't have a problem with it. Now I'm like, no, I do have a fucking problem with it. He speaks to people like they are human pieces of shit. We had a saying in our department: if you lecture, don't issue. If you issue, don't lecture. It's one or the other.
I like that.
It was very fair to do that. So I'm blown away with today's cops. And the problem with social media is it's entertainment. You have two mobs supporting. It's either the people that are, fuck the police, or the people who are fuck around and find out. You shouldn't have done that. Oh, well, he plays stupid games, wins stupid prizes. So the Frank Sloops of the world, they feed into the mob that loves to see people being punished. And that's a dangerous precedence we're setting for our other cops who are sitting there going, oh, I can't wait to be a cop so I can go out on the street and I can pull people
100%.
It's emotional intelligence that needs to be vetted during the candidacy process. Can you talk a bit about how piss poor the hiring process is? Because before I'm 5'7". I have no idea how tall you are. Before we got
6'2".
on, okay, 6'2". If this was the 90s, you would get hired. I wouldn't, because they had a height requirement back then of 5'8" minimum. So they started lowering and changing standards. You've got the fitness standards where women do not have to do the same thing that men do. The college, I guess they went to college, dropped college, all this shit. And I have no college, so I was very lucky to get in. Talk about the standards and quality of the hiring process today versus how it was when we got on.
Well, when we got on, just to give an idea, in the 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, there used to be 1,000 applicants per month.
Oh my God, yes. Yep.
5% will only make it. So think about that. Out of 1,000, you only get 5%. Out of the 5%, only 50% move to backgrounds. Out of the 50% of the backgrounds, only 50% actually made it all the way to the psych test to get the appointment. So essentially, you're left with like 10. And out of the 10, some accept the appointment to the academy, some don't. So those days are long, long gone. The fact that the standards have lowered, which is true. I do know that the incident in Memphis PD where with the 5 officers working that specialized unit. People talked about, they were hired. When they beat that guy up, he was in handcuffs, and the person died not too long ago. I forgot the name of but it was Memphis PD working the Scorpion unit or something like that. Uh, People always bring up hiring standards. Um, the officer that shot the Massey shooting over
Illinois,
in Illinois.
six
They talk about
departments.
the hiring stand. That should really wake up this industry as it relates to backgrounds, because that dude had like 5 or 6 jobs, temporary jobs, and he had a whole bunch of different IAs before they even hired him. And I called it when that incident came out. I told my family, I said, you know what? Give it about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe not even a month, but that chief is going to resign. He's got to go, because guess what, man? You're the one who signed off on all this shit.
Why is everybody
So it
allowed
comes
to
back
resign?
to you.
Why when people sit there, and I love when people sit there and go, you got fired. Yeah, it was a choice. They told me resign or we'll fire you. And I said, fuck you, fire me. Spent 3 years. I got my job back, and fucking then I retired.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. It was, I knew I was going, I could have easily gone to another department, which is what so many cops do. This is the point I'm bringing up. They gave me a choice. Resign or we'll fire you. I knew I wasn't in the wrong. It took 3 years of hell. I lost everything. I won, was reinstated. Then I wound up retiring. No, everybody resigns. That's all they do. You see online shootings and the beatings and all this stuff. And why are cops not criminally charged? We see if it's a chief of police who is what was I told when I went through a training that one of the reasons that there's a certain training a police chief has to do every year, because they are accountable for every officer's training that's done. So if I miss my baton recertification and I go out and beat somebody with my baton, but I'm not certified, the chief is responsible for that. So if that's the case, why are these police chiefs not criminally prosecuted? And we just have way too many. Well, the officer was fired, and we don't have anybody criminally held accountable.
Yeah, no, there should be some. The little that I remember in law school, I went to law school and graduated in 2016, and I remember going through the negligence theory, hiring and training. That should be a civil suit at the very least, but negligence does have a criminal component to consider criminal filings. Misrepresentation is a huge theory that you can kind of analyze. My point is that chief of police should be, depending on the circumstances, and I guess this one's perfect with Massey, where, hey man, you kind of knew this and you totally misrepresented this entire hiring of this one particular individual. Guess what? You are liable, criminally, that is. Let's file some charges.
I agree. That negligence thing, there's a double standard there. How often do we hear, and it's not that often, but it's often enough where you hear a negligent firearm or negligent discharge. Right. So for people, here's a cop who accidentally, and they call it negligent discharge when you accidentally fire your weapon, right? But if a resident did that, that's a criminal charge.
Correct.
Why do we have the double standard that we do? The cops that were the criminal correction officers who were just lynched and murdered Brooks over in NYC. If that was a citizen, you'd have several charges already. It's over a month, or it's a month tomorrow. Yeah. So why do we have such a horrible double standard in law enforcement for criminal charging, and the citizens are abused for everything?
Oh man, you just hit a nerve with that breakdown that I did. I'm so spot on with your comments on that. Look, if there's one thing that came out very, very good on behalf of law enforcement, I should say the law enforcement community, is when the chief of police, going back to that Memphis PD issue incident, she just automatically said, you know what, within 48 hours, these people are done and we're going to file criminal charges. So those are lessons learned. She got it. Hey, let's get rid of these fucking raw apples and get them out. They're bad actors. Got to go. You'll no longer be a cop. But this particular incident Dude, it blows my mind. Me personally, all 14 got to go.
Oh,
They all have to go because to me, what stands out the most, it's not the ones that were doing all the fucking beating and all that, choking them and putting the white cloth in his mouth. That is easy. That's easy to say. You know what? You're done. What bothers me the most is that duty to intervene, that duty to intercede, that duty to interfere. Because if you're sitting there watching all this and you have absolutely talk about emotions, man. Talk about your moral compass.
That's a very difficult, and I'll empathize to a degree.
You got to go, bro. You got to go.
I think they should be scenarios like that tested in the academy, and you're never going to get it because when we saw George Floyd, I put myself in those new hire shoes. How do you sit there? And whether or not anybody agrees with George Floyd, I think that George Floyd died of the fentanyl overdose. That's what I believe.
Correct.
I think, though, that what Chauvin did was worse because he posed like this is a Serengeti giraffe I just shot for fucking 9 minutes. He knelt on Floyd like he was a trophy, and that's horrible image of the public. White guy doing to black guy. I want to know the viewpoint of the cop. You're fucked. Well, I'm brand new. I'm on probation. Yeah. I can't push this seasoned guy off. Maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe this is a tactic that he knows. And then if you do it, well, now you're ostracized by your fucking department. Your career is over.
100%. Or if you decide to say anything, then you are the Blue Falcon. 100%. You got that Blue Falcon first degree labeled on you, and you can't do shit about it. You know what's interesting about George Floyd, and I just got done watching the Falling in Minneapolis on YouTube, which is a phenomenal documentary. In any of these incidents, again, everybody pulls the trigger, and the first thing they say is, "Oh my God, hiring standards, training." You know what? I call bullshit. If we're really, really going to change this 18,000 plus departments throughout the United States and about close to 1 million sworn officers throughout the nation, then you know what? Let's go with culture, because culture, and I always say this, dictates what you do, and for the most part, of things that you don't do. So let's not sit here and pretend that no one knew how Chauvin conducts police work, because that's not his first time doing shit like that.
Yeah, several pictures of him doing it before.
Yeah, it's that, you know what? People know. The sergeant knows, but guess what? He turns a blind eye. And the lieutenant knows, the captain knows, and the chief knows. And now you have this big incident, and you're like, well, yeah, I guess he got training. And we didn't really know that this kind of tactic is used or applied. And it was just a mess. But that goes along with everything. To me, I'm just a big, big fan and a big advocate on culture, which is one of the reasons why I decided to start this podcast. To your point, Dom, the main theme out of the 100 plus guests that I've had thus far on the podcast has been just this, quote unquote. Marlon, you know what? The punishment is not the penalty. The punishment is the process. And how we're treated and how I was treated throughout this whole process. I had a guest that lost his job just like you. Took him 2 years to get his job back. And now he's active. He's a lieutenant, and actually he runs IA. And he said, you know what, Marlon? It's not what I did. I totally understand what I did, and I'm fully accountable for my actions. But it's the way they actually treated me, because now I am ostracized. I am in the island all by myself. And you know what, man? I'm tired of calling us out with hypocrisy. We are the biggest fucking hypocrites in this profession. Right now, it's the beginning of the year. You just had potluck on Thanksgiving. Everybody comes in and brings in their favorite foods and dishes. Sergeants, lieutenants, captains. Oh my God, what are you going to do with your family? Oh my God, Christmas and the holidays are coming up. Maybe I can come in and work your shift because you work real hard. We're one big happy family. We are the thin blue line.
There's no.
I wear the captain the chief wears that Santa hat, and everything is grayed out. But oh wait, hold on a second, Dom, Marlon, you guys got an IA. Guess what? I can't talk to you anymore. I have to disassociate with me and disconnect And guess what? You are ordered that you cannot speak to anyone about this besides me, your representative or your attorney, and be home. So you can't even talk to your wife or your family about it.
It's the
That's
loneliest fucking
one
place out
of the
there.
main reasons why I decided to have an internal affairs, a police podcast, so that we can talk and hopefully there's someone listening, there's someone watching, young, not us, we're in our 50s. Some young cop in Illinois or some young cop in LAPD that's a sergeant lieutenant that's going to make command staff and be a captain, a commander, or a deputy chief, and hopes to hear all these stories to say, you know what? I'm not going to sell myself out just because I didn't like Dom or I didn't like Marlon. So guess what? Fuck it. You know what? Throw the fucking hatchet on him and just cut him on the knees and fire him.
Well, now you were brass, so I'm going to lump you in this category, but that's what you guys do. You guys go from patrol as our favorite fucking people, and then once you get the stars, bars, chevrons, clovers, and all that shit, I said all the time, I think there's a secret chapter in staff and command school where they teach the brass how to fuck patrol so bad that they what the hell's going on? Everything you said is true. The cop culture is insane. I got fired for a text message. Now, I was in a federal lawsuit, whistleblower lawsuit, and it took them 8 months to find a policy I violated, and that's what they got rid of me on, knowing that I'm going to fucking win, but they still got rid of me. You know how many people looked at me like I set a fucking nursing home on fire? You were fired. Guys, it was a text message. You got fired. But that cop down the road shot and killed that. Well, that person fucking deserved it. I'm like, the culture is insane, and they don't get like this. This is where my domestic violence and cop brainwashing comes back into. You'll attack the cops who go through it, but they don't stop and go, "What'd your brass put you through, dude?" No one ever asked that shit. They don't go, "All right, you got fired. What'd you do?" Okay, and then you listen to it and go, explain this. This is what this, because the second you are in the crosshairs of brass, your life is fucking over.
Yeah, over. 100%. You, Dom, in your incident, your IA, you committed the biggest fucking felony in the history of your department, and they thought that you were just this fucking bank robber or this fucking murder suspect. That's exactly how they labeled you, or that's how you actually felt.
Oh yeah. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
We got
to talk about that, bro.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that because you're command staff. What happens? What's the mentality of, like, is there pressure from your commanders, your lieutenants, your chiefs, deputy chiefs to say, okay, now that you're brass, because this is my theory, because I never was command, but if you had pressure on me. And there was quotas, we call them performance evaluations. There's quotas out there. So I got to knock down X amount of cars a day. I have to do my consent searches. I have to do all this shit. Yeah. So if there's pressure for me to do that, there has to be pressure on command to do the same thing to command. If you ever saw Band of Brothers, the first episode, Currahee, when you have Sobel looking at Winter saying, find some infractions. He's like, what for infractions? Like, find some. Is it the same thing with command staff putting pressure on the subordinates of command to then go and take it out on the street cops?
I don't necessarily think it's pressure. When in my time, and by the way, I retired as a sergeant, and one of the reasons why I didn't want to go and make captain is because I never want to be in a predicament where I have an IA that's minor in nature, violation of policies, maybe a neglect of duties, what we call an NOD. And in LAPD, you have a Captain 1 who's in charge of patrol and the Captain 3 who's in charge of the entire precinct command. Then you have Bureau, your next level, which is your commander and deputy chief of that Bureau. And then you have a deputy chief and a commander in internal affairs. And guess what? It doesn't stop there. They actually have to go to the 10th floor, which is the highest floor of the building, to go sell it to the chief. What I will tell you is, me personally, I just believe there's too many hands in the cookie jar to make decisions. Because if I'm a Captain 1 and I'm sitting there going, you know what? This is unfounded, man. Preponderance is what? 51% more likely than not. It didn't happen, man. Hey, you got 48%, but you ain't at 51. So guess what? This is just not sustained. It's unfounded. However, You would think there's concurrence with my bureau. If I go shut up to bureau, and let's just say they don't like Marlon. Oh, well, Marlon's this, Marlon's that. Well, Marlon thinks he knows it all because he went to law school. He's going to be a lawyer one day, whatever. And next thing you know, they say, no, you know what? We want what we call military endorsement, which means we want to change your adjudication from not sustained to sustained. And you're like, well, you know what? I'm not going to do that. You want a military endorse it at your level, you're more than welcome to do it. And guess what? If that officer wants to call me to appeal in his appeal and say that I was the one that said that this is a not sustained internal affairs complaint investigation, that was my adjudication, I'm there. But you know what? That might cost me a promotion. That might cost me a bitchin' job. And so that's how I roll. But guess what, man? A lot of people are not like that. You know,
No.
they look out for themselves. So it's not like they actually bash on actually patrol. I just think that as you have many levels of review, it tends to become self-serving at some point.
Oh.
Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but you got to understand LAPD is a big machine. You're talking in an excess of over 4,000 complaints a year.
Yeah.
So let's just make sure that your audience knows that we are talking about a very small fraction of the population of sustained complaints, meaning there's cops out there that do violate policy, that do neglect their duties, that commit some crazy, shitty, fucking just fucked up criminal offenses. And there's some unbecoming conducts, right? There's some Cubo conduct unbecoming an officer that has a negative reflection on yourself and the department in the eyes of all stakeholders. Yes, but that fraction is super, super small.
That fraction, though, still is a problem. It's like a cancer cell.
100%.
Right? So
100%.
I'm talking about problem solving. Every time I put up a use of force video that I'm like, how the fuck is it 2025 and this is still happening? People will go, well, it's a small percentage. Well, I don't want a small cancer cell in my body because it's going to grow and metastasize, if you will, and it's going to kill me. How do we solve this problem of what seems to be? And I'll ask this first question first.
Yes.
Does it seem we have a problem because just social media now is everywhere and there's a lot more readily available videos of these issues? Or is it the same number we've always had? And regardless of that answer, is that acceptable? Either one. So, well, we've always had 10,000 issues of bad cops a year, and 10,000 out of 800,000 cops isn't that many. And then, or is it, well, no, it's increased to this. What's your opinion on how we're at a never ending funnel of like, dude, you just bounced that guy's head on concrete after he was in handcuffs, and it's December 2024. How could you do that? Whoa.
Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier. There's over 18,000 departments throughout the United States. There's close to 1 million. Think about that. 1 million sworn police officers, law enforcement agents, correctional officers, all together in our industry. And I'll be the first one to tell you, we have a lot of work ahead of us. Now, social media has exposed it and magnified it times 100. But it goes back to what we were talking earlier, bro. Hey, man, you sitting in front of your computer and getting training and checking the box, that's not going to fucking work for you to improve. Like you said, maybe I shouldn't have bounced his head while he was handcuffed, or you go to, to this training session and the presenter's got death by PowerPoints, what we call it. Just sitting there in PowerPoint, and you're not learning anything. You're not watching anything. So I'm a big advocate of having a roll call with YouTubes, of OISs, of these incidents to tell your officers, look, man, you see that up there? That's not going to happen on my watch. If any of you do anything like that, you know what? Chances are, here's the deal, man. Forget getting fired. You're talking about your freedom, dude. Here in the county of Los Angeles, we just got rid of our district attorney, George Gascon, who was just heavy on filing criminal charges on cops. The new guy is pretty lenient, pretty flexible. But even if we have a guy that's very pro police, it doesn't matter, dude. You have to know the rules of the game. We call it here in California 835 APC, which is your definition of a use of force, which is your use of force policy. In that policy, you have your deadly force policy. You got to know that stuff. And if you're a cop out there and you don't know in your state your use of force policy, you better get on it, man, because that's going to save you from what we used to call the gray bar motel, man. It's going to save you.
They don't know what the First Amendment is. I don't know. It's like you use of force. Fucking, it blows me away. And sadly, you again, you have the public who supports that. Well, the guy had it coming, dude. He was in fucking cuffs. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
Do you fear where the lack of true police accountability is headed with the public? Meaning, I watched a video a couple days ago of 4 NYPD cops taking a black guy into custody, and 2 of the one cop was standing there with a taser doing nothing. One had him in control. One was a small female, and one was a heavyweight Hispanic guy. A female, useless. The Hispanic guy elbowed this guy in the face 5 times. And nothing. You would think a technique like that would do what it's supposed to do: stun the person, so it changes their state. You put them in handcuffs. It did nothing. Public perception doesn't get. Yeah, we're using those striking techniques to transition you into handcuffs, but when it doesn't work and it looks excessive, and you see this nonstop funnel of videos going through your social media all the time, do you fear that there's going to be a time where, well, what the fuck? There's 4 of these NYPD cops and there's 30 of us bystanders. We're tired of this shit, and it's open season on cops. How dangerous are we at that point?
You know what? Very good point you bring up, Dom. I really believe that I could see that happening in the future. What I will say about all these videos that look so fucking ugly, you and I can agree that, hey, man, any use of force, when you apply force, it's not pretty, dude. I don't care how many times you're on the floor mat with BJJ, inside the gym, or in the academy in a sterile environment. Look, man, when you go out there in the streets and do what you got to do, it's not textbook. It will never be textbook. So let me just throw some buzzwords your way, so that way the audience can kind of have an understanding about how to do an analysis on a use of force incident. So here in LAPD, we use substantial deviation from department policy and procedure without justification. What that means is that whatever tactic that you apply, whatever that is, takedown, clamp, carotid, which we don't have that much anymore. Just think about all the tactics that you use to try to effect an arrest, prevent an escape, or overcome resistance, which is, the general reason why you apply force. If you deviate from that, the department's saying, fine, you're good to go. You can deviate, and you can deviate substantially. What does substantially mean? How do we measure substantial? Well, we don't know that. That can depend on whatever person's doing the analysis. But the main key and the main point to all this is, can you justify your actions? And cops, till today, 2025, have a hard time. I wouldn't say not all the time, but sometimes they have a difficult time explaining and articulating their actions.
They don't understand what's coming. And I pointed this out in 2014, PERF, Police Executive Research Forum. I'm surprised as shit this is not coming up. Back then, if you went on the website PERF, they had use of force policy change that this is, I guess in PERF, you have to be an agency of 100 officers or more to be involved in it. But they wanted to change the use of force standard. The number 4 tenet on that was proportionality. And underneath it, it wrote, they wanted to change the standard of use of force from objectively reasonableness from the eyes of a police officer to proportionality as judged by the eyes of a civilian. So I tried for years to say, do you have any idea how fucking dangerous this is? So you've got a guy that is stabbing you, and you pull your pistol out and you shoot him center mass 15 times, and the public is going to go, well, why couldn't you just shoot him in the leg? That's where this is headed. But and we to fall back on that, it's when cops don't train, when they fuck around on TikTok too much, when we don't hire able-bodied athletes who also have a brain, and we hire small women, obese men, fucking whatever, they fall back on using too much force because they physically can't use the proper amount of force to effect an arrest. Yeah. That's what's going to push this perf shit over the edge and push in their favor. Because I keep saying, man, you know what? If you had righteous cops out there who, you know, every one of them, and it's never going to happen, who know the Constitution, know the state law, know the policies, know all this shit, and they go out and they are fit and they are athletes and they are police professionals, when they use that sloppy, chaotic-looking use of force, they will be so easy to defend. They will be so easy to defend because you have the background of going, well, look at the standards that they hold themselves to. But we don't have that. So this proportionality by the public, that's going to come and it's going to fuck every cop in America over.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. And you know what, to add on to that, stay tuned for an upcoming episode that I had with my boss, Scott Savage from Savage Training Group. And we talk about de-escalation. And he refers to this 10-minute video that Perf put on by over in Scotland. So a whole bunch of chief executives got invited to Scotland for a demo of a man holding a bat. And of course, they don't have any weapons. It's comical. It is comical. And they praised it. It's on their website saying that this is the way you should de-escalate. And we'll say the details for later. But to your point, yeah, man, we got a lot of look, by having these platforms, we have a lot of work ahead of us. I have to give you major props for your last video that you did regarding Miranda. I forgot her last name. I was just watching a little bit right now. That really, and I watched the whole thing, man. I normally just watch a little bit, but I got to hear and really listen, and it resonated with me, the fact that she was probably, and I don't know her, a real good cop, man. She was probably doing great police work, definitely an asset to the department. And here's the way I see it. Female police officers, in my lens, are needed tremendously. My ex-wife is still on the job, and I'd be the first one to tell you, if you arrive at a radio call of a rape incident, if the victim happens to be a female, I think the last person she's going to want to talk to is a male police officer. Granted, kids, family, domestic violence, having a way to have this EI, this emotional intelligence, to de-escalate a situation, both genders are good at that. With that being said, what stuck to me the most is that she had social media and she wasn't out there being a floozy and exposing herself. Like you said, sexualizing her image, bathroom selfies, and just doing all this to get the attention. She just got screwed over. And what trips me out, dude, is the fact that she was criminally charged on it. It was all made up.
I said it flat out. You know, she pissed off.
100%.
I'm anti-female cop as a blanket statement. And you and I talked about this on the phone. I had to look back and I had to ask myself, well, what am I really anti-cop about? Because I worked with 6 of them and 4 were phenomenal. 2 were horrible. 2 were horrible fucking human beings. So it's unfair for me to say that. And then I started to look forward. No, I can't stand. It's the social media influencer female cop I can't stand. And that transcends into males as well, too. We have some, I think we had some guy, I think he was in Illinois, Southern Illinois, who did this. He had a big TikTok platform, like 200,000 people. And he did this video on, hey, I'm going to piss you off. And he goes, and he started talking about the shit that we do, where how he loves, where if you're driving to work and he's driving another direction, he will zip around behind you and then get behind, ride your ass and then follow you for about a mile and pull off. And he did this whole video. And I'm like, you're a fucking clown. And his department found out about it, made him clean this shit up. But the whole point is when you can't compartmentalize, and I have to wonder if it's a legitimate like brain issue. I don't care what somebody does in the department. I really don't. I came from the nightclub industry. Everyone was fucking everyone. And when you went into the law enforcement, it was still going on. Cops were cheating on their wives. Guy and gal on midnights are fucking. But if you could do the job, I didn't care. But today we have, it's got to be an age and a mentality thing, because you have some 20-something-year-old female who starts a job who, if you see her behavior and actions, and she's dancing on TikTok and lip syncing to music, parading her uniform saying, I got the dream job, chances are you do not have the mental fortitude to do this job. Be a silent professional. Put up selfies. Put up instructional videos. Showcase the job. Because what these people don't realize is the enemies we have in our government. If you look at when Eric Garner did what he did, and Pantaleo, who I think was completely fucking innocent of that with the chokehold, that set the standard that we have morons. We have morons in government who appease to their constituents and their voters. Yeah. The rear naked choke, the safest fucking move in the planet.
Oh yeah.
But we don't have a single congressional member that says, this is the stupidest bill anywhere. If you outlaw this on cops, you're dumb. Yeah. In my opinion, every single cop should be using the rear naked choke 90% of the time, because it's the safest way to put somebody in fucking handcuffs. But we have morons out there. So when you feed into that moronic behavior by showcasing your off-duty body in your halter top and your bikini, and you're on Anavar with your fake fucking tits, who the fuck can ever justify your mentality on the job? Because lastly, because I know I get long-winded on this, the biggest problem I have with females over men, we're stupid. You know, it's black and white, food, sex, and work. That's all we do. But women, in a general sense, have a very difficult time emotionally processing. This is my opinion. This is not coming from you at all. They can't handle the challenge, the criticism, or the opposition when it comes down to them being in a masculine position of leadership. Men are masculine, and we have that leadership. When you put a woman in there that's against her nature, and then you have somebody go, fuck you, I'm not going in cuffs, and she can't process that, then you add in the hormones and the menstrual cycle. It's a dangerous cycle, because that cop could potentially go overboard and ruin the fucking person's life, adding on more charges, more tickets, more this, and command staff.
It's personal.
It's a personal, and command staff will back them because they can't side with them. So my ultimate issue is we have a massive maturity problem with cops. Social media is fucking pure evil for law enforcement, and you mix in feminine hormones, which is my opinion, they don't belong on the job. They just don't. That's my opinion, not yours.
Yeah, no, it's interesting a lot. You know what? We are heavy on BJJ. BJJ is like the new phenomenon, in law enforcement, which, by the way, you need it, man. You need it. There is policies, rules and regulations on your department that pretty much, and this is just my opinion, where if the shit hits the fan, man, and shit's escalating, you got to go hands on, man. And that's the reality of police work. And so when you have female officers, and even some men, so I don't want to sound completely sexist, but you have both genders that are, doing the TikTok and doing all the influencing stuff. And then next thing you know, you go to a radio call, you do a traffic stop, and guess what, man? You got to get it on. You got to get it on. That's the true test. And so that's what it really comes down to. And the question is, are you spending enough time training and spending money, right? And focusing your attention to what really belongs on your functions, your everyday functions as a police officer, as opposed to doing the rest.
Here's the other problem.
Forget, the light bulb. I was going to tell you, the light bulb just hit when you just said this. What we were talking about is that, don't you find it kind of contradicting that we are learning BJJ, but hold on a second, if I fucking slip, if for whatever reason we're on the ground, this guy's wanted for fucking like 10 murders. We've been after him for 2 years. Fucking escape from prison, whatever. And for whatever reason, I'm fighting for my life, and I just happened to slip my, on a rear naked chokehold. Fuck, Marlon, you did a fucking great job. But guess what? That chokehold, I got a jam for it. You're going to get an IA.
Violates policy.
Come on, man.
The other
Come
problem
on,
we have.
bro.
The other problem we have
Can't
is
fucking win.
cops always win. This is the unfair standard that cops have. It's a mentality. You know, I'm not a cop anymore, and I play this scenario in my head all the time where I know I'm not well liked in the profession anymore. And if I drive down the road and somebody sees me, you know, I stand out, fucking white hair, you know, blah, blah, all this shit. They're going to flip a bitch and they're going to wind up finding a reason to pull me over. And what happens? What happens when it's step out of the car, Mr. Izzo, and I get out of the car and all of a sudden they're going to be patting me down, all this shit. And I know that my ego and my blood pressure are going to take over, but I can't fucking do it. I can't resist. I can't do anything. And they have that automatic barrier of they're one up in winning the fight because of the mentality of, I put this person on the ground, there's going to be a fucking whole armada next. And you know what? At that point, I'm going to go down looking like a piece of Swiss cheese. It's just going to be that way. But the problem I have is we have a group of mentality of people that you go train BJJ, you go do whatever, you're looking to put, I can't wait to use that move on the street. I can't wait to do that. It's a mentality, because I had that. I came from a fucking martial arts and competitive wrestling background. I knew. I came
that's
from
right.
4 a.m. bar fighting. I'm like, dude, I love to fight. What, I'm going to work in this town? I got hired? This shitty town, let's fight. So I know what it's like to have that. I don't know how to turn that switch off of going, dude, you're going to fight. Don't fucking love it, because the citizens are always going to lose, and there's no glory in having numbers and weapons that dominate, and you're going to come out on top. There's no honor in that.
Hey, man, you remember back in our days, they told us about using force, that acronym ATM?
No.
Ask, tell, and make.
Oh, yeah. Ask, tell, yes. Yeah, sir.
ATM, baby.
Yes.
For me, it was ATD. Ask, tell, and do. Sir, put your hands behind your head. Fuck you. You know what? I'm telling you to put your hands behind your head. Fuck you. Okay. Now I'm going to fucking do it.
But we have cops.
I'm going to make.
God, this is the counterbalance problem all the time. You say that, but then now you've had in the last 10 years of cops nonstop being YouTube sensations and losing their job for shit. And so now you get to the point of, I'm backing up. You've got a knife and you're walking towards me at a fast pace.
Right.
And I'm saying 20 times, sir, drop the knife, sir, drop the knife, sir, drop. And it's like, dude, you didn't even have to say it. You could have just ventilated him right there. So now we have cops who are too afraid to do shit. That's
100%.
That's why use of force escalates, because A, they don't know how. B, they're not in shape. They're small in stature. They're weak, whatever.
Yes.
C, they're mentally terrified to act.
Yeah, no, totally, man. It's almost as there's just no fucking winning either way. If you're a BJJ fucking expert and you're like you said, dude, I can't wait to fucking use that move, you're going to probably go back to our days. ATM, baby. But hold on a second. I can't do that because the law says that I have to use that buzzword, de-escalation. Oh, shit, you know. And then you have the other ones that are soft that are going to be, like you said, and they're going to be afraid and hesitate. You know, I got asked yesterday about if de-escalation causes hesitation, you know, with cops. And what I did say was it can. But what people have to understand is, do you use de-escalation? And my boss says it best. Scott Savage does it the best. Is de-escalation actually a verb or is it a noun? Because if it's a verb, you just can't be going around saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I just de-escalated you. Now it's time for me to fucking, you know, put the boots, you know, whatever. Or is it a noun? We tend to think at Savage Training Group that it's a noun. Why? Because there is a buy-in. And this is what many people don't understand. The suspect gets a vote, man. You have to offer that to them. And if they don't fucking want to do it, then guess what, man? All bets are off. I'm fucking going to town and I'm putting boots.
We had that mentality, sadly, towards the end, but we got that from our department. Obama, I'll never forget, was the whole the war on police started under Obama, where he
early 90s,
dude. And the moment he said it, well, the moment Obama said it was when he was president. He said the Cambridge police acted stupidly. To have a sitting U.S. president who happened to be half black but identified as black criticize cops without having any of the information, completely declared war on police by people going, oh, Well, it's acceptable if my new black hope and change president says this. I can criticize, which you should, but I should demonize. And that's what he did in that process.
Yes. Yeah.
We sat there. I'll never forget towards the end, we were in a training and it was one of our trainers was like, it was a mag dump. We talked about having the articulation that I'm not going to, a guy's charging me with a knife. I'm not going to put 2 rounds into you, assess, and then 2 more, and then assess. I'm going to empty the magazine so that the threat is eliminated. Now, granted, some people like Grady Judd, I can't fucking stand his verbiage, will advocate we need to just kill, we need to have them nothing left but a puddle of blood. But we started to go, I looked at my partner during the training, I went, both of us looked at each other and went, fuck that, dude. We're going to take a shot first before we fire. Because we had the mentality, I'm not shooting anybody on duty, because if I do, my chief loves to string guys up. So I could have a righteous shooting, and then all of a sudden, next thing, I'm going to lose my job, go to jail. I would rather take a round in the chest and then fucking draw. And and we both realized, dude, this has changed. Culture's changed, dude.
Culture, man. It's the way it goes, brother.
Oh, listen, I've had so much of your time. Tell everybody about your podcast. Where can they follow it? Where can they find it? What do you got coming up? And what kind of guests have you? Tell everything about it.
Man, let's see. Well, you're definitely my future guest. That's for sure. You can find me on YouTube. I think I already given that, but I put everything up on Instagram. So you can find the IA Guy podcast on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. My name, Marlon, M-A-R-L-O-N, last name Marachi, M-A-R-R-A-C-H-E. And you know what, man? Get a hold of me if you have any related issues concerning internal affairs, anything in that process. I teach it for Savage Training Group. We teach mainly sergeants on a 3-day basic course, anywhere from knowing what misconduct is, what's the definition of misconduct, to an intake, to investigating, to adjudicating, the whole process from beginning to end. And I love this stuff, man. I love it because I always felt that the transparency was never there when it comes to very emotional issues that you're dealing with, especially when you did the right thing, when you are told that, hey, this is how you should do things. And next thing you know, the department wants to jam you up and IA you for something that you really truly believe was the right thing to do. So that's my world. I've always enjoyed trying to explain and educate and make some awareness about, hey, maybe the way we treat each other is we can do better, which is probably one of the main reasons. Come on, I've had guests from command staff to talk about the adjudication process and what is it that they look for when they adjudicate a complaint, all the way down to accused employees. I haven't had many guests that have come in to say, hey, you know what, Marlon, let me tell you what happened. And I hold myself accountable. I've learned from it. And I hope that your audience can, have some awareness if they happen to have something similar that happened to me. I haven't had many of those guests, but I've had guests who have been wrongfully terminated, like yourself. I've had a couple of guests to say, hey, you know what? The podcast has evolved, right? We do breakdowns, we do viral incidents, we talk about situations. I try to stay away from OISs because I hate passing judgment and putting myself in the shoes of an officer that actually pulled the trigger. That's not me. But what I can do with an OIS, it's explain to you, hey, okay, got it. You made this decision, but what about the process? Criminal charges were rejected. Now comes the admin. What do we do? How do we handle something like this? Do we jam them up and suspend them? Or do we just send them to training? Do we just counsel them? So those are the kind of issues that I like to talk about. No any different than the deadly beating at the Marcy's Correctional Facility. That's a perfect one. That is an in-custody death. Well, we don't get a lot. However, let's talk about everybody that's in the room. What do you do, or how do you feel about all those people that were there and then didn't interfere, or interacted whatsoever? So that's where my lens of my audience, I like to give all that information. And That's it, man. Go to
I
YouTube, man. Just make it happen. YouTube's been good to me. I learned. I went from being a retired retired cop, and I got myself involved in an incubator program to learn everything there is to know about creating content. And
That's stressful.
it's been successful, man. You know what? I'm happy. I'm very passionate about this stuff, and I think I said this to you when we talked. And lastly, I would always say, "Hey, Dom, you know what? What you're doing, keep doing what you're doing with your style, your delivery, your approach. It's needed. Some people might think it's raw. You know what? Who gives a shit? You're giving out good information, and you're speaking truth, man. You're very transparent, and that's what we lack in our industry.
I
And there
appreciate
will
that.
never be enough platforms. And hear me out, man. This is so true. Listen, I just turned 56 years old. I'm going to go to my grave with not enough platforms for police podcasts. There isn't. If I were to take a guess, and I'm highballing this throughout the United States, maybe there's probably 100 of us, maybe, or more. Could be. I don't know. But even then, it's not enough.
Well, there's a ton of
So,
TikTok cops, so we're good on that one. I want to ask you. I want to ask you one more question before you go.
yes, sir.
I
Yes,
want
sir.
I want you to offer three call them tenets of advice on
Mm-hmm.
new officers coming in. Somebody says if somebody walked up to you and said, "Man, I want to be a cop," what are the top
Yes.
three things you would tell them? And then what would you tell the top three things to a seasoned 5 or 10 year guy on to get them back focused on the rights of the job from the lens of what 80% of cops do? The driving around, the community service, the calls that are, the domestics and the not high intense stuff. But 80% of law enforcement is going to be proactive,
Yes.
traffic citations, or it's going to be response calls. So you got the two, you got the seasoned and the new. What are the top three things you're telling each one of them to improve the culture in the next decade?
Here's what I will say. For all the new ones that are applying to become a police officer today, there's 4 components that you have to be completely locked on. You have to be mentally 100% strong to do this. Physically, you got to be you got to be strong, dude. You got to run, calisthenics, and the whole nine, because the chase is going to be on one day. So mental and physically are huge. Emotionally, get your emotions intact, bro. We talked about EI earlier. You have to know when to one up and when to not one up someone. That intellect, how to maneuver your emotions, is super, super strong. And last but not least, academically, you got to know, man. You got to study, develop a study habit. All those 4 components, when you apply and you get that appointment to the police academy, they're going to come into play. Now, with that being said, you might be strong in 2 out of the 4, but put your very best effort to ensure that all 4 of those components, when you come on the job, are up there, man. And just keep trying and don't give up and don't quit. That's what I would say to the new ones. Now, to the seasoned officer, this is it's very simple. This 2 things more than 3. Wherever you are, in whatever state, city, you have to know 2 things. One, you got to know your use of force policy. That is your Bible, man. And if you haven't read it, read it. And now it's one thing to just read it and say, "Oh, okay, I read it, and yeah, whatever." No, have some roll calls and really have a full body discussion and run scenarios about your use of force policy. And in addition to that is your use of deadly force policy, because your freedom depends on it. And last but not least, because I am the IA guy and I'm all about IA, you got to know your rights. You have to know your peace officers' rights. If you don't, go to your local union and get them. If you're a state that doesn't have any rights, well, fucking A, man. Make sure that you're not being ostracized, that you're not being questioned about alleged misconduct of a traffic stop or a call that I went to without representation. That is huge, because guess what, man? Dominic, I know you know this. We eat our own. We do it to ourselves way more than we need to. So
I want to get
that's my advice, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm gonna get notice of interrogation and Garrity tattooed on my forehead.
There you go.
Yeah, it's IA Guy Podcast. Go support,
Yes.
check it out, please. Marlon, I appreciate this huge. We're gonna do another one soon. Have you back on because there's just so much to talk about, and I'd love to get a guest. We'll break down some training stuff too. I want to have more people on that we could do side by side talking about incidents and whatnot as well too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, dude. Anything viral comes out, hit me up, bro. I'll be more than welcome to do it, man.
Great.
And I'll do the same with you.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I'm at your disposal. IA Guy Podcast. Appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Go ahead and share the content if you like it. Click on the links below to wind up purchasing my book, Before the Badge, Everything You Need to Know Before You Become a Cop, or support the channel, Cop Talk Live on PayPal. We want to grow this. We want to have some changes. I don't have all the answers, but I love bringing people on like Marlon who have more answers than I do and more experience about stuff than I do. But I don't care if you are LAPD. I'm not bowing down to you for shit. But there you go. That's it, guys. Appreciate you. I'll see you guys next Wednesday live, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're live all the time. We'll wind up going back to your calls. If you have anything that you want to say, go ahead and text it or speak it into your iPhone or leave a voicemail to 708-982-0974. I play your voicemails and voice